Good to see you. So let's begin the discussion session of session 6. So I'm Seok CEO of Lunit, and here, this gentleman is Park Young-tae, CEO of My Genome Box. So, any opinions or thoughts after listening to my presentation?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here as a panelist for Medical AI Industry's Global Business Strategies. My name is Youngtae Park. It is my great honor and pleasure to be here to listen to the presentation and many different speakers' speeches. I truly thank the host for inviting me here. Medical industry. Now, Lunit is showcasing the status of Korean medical industry around the world, and it is my great opportunity to be able to learn about what Lunit has been doing, and AI could be fused into overcoming some of the rare diseases that we haven't treated successfully so far. So now I'm going to move on to asking questions. After your presentation, there were some questions that popped in my head about business. As I was preparing this, I did my own personal research on Lunit, and I found that you are using AI to detect cancer, and then you also develop a software for cancer treatment as well, not just detection, and you're the leader in this industry. So, because of these strengths and advantages, GE Healthcare or Philips or other medical devices have made great partnerships with your company. But then my question is, as you are partnering with global companies, and because you communicate with doctors, which are basically higher level people in the society, I think there could be some risks that you have to hedge because you Lunit is going to be serviced on devices. So, for example, MRI devices. Then you might maybe be able to rely on certain software vendors. Then how are you going to, resolve this dependency?
So, in terms of partnership, I cannot provide the details, but there's a revenue here. So, at each hospital, they when they purchase our goods, medical device, then they GE or partners that they will get a fee and the annual sales. We are putting efforts to maintain a similar level of sales. But if we were ever to do direct sales without partnering with those companies, then our sales operating team putting efforts to do that directly with all the each individual respective countries, then it'll cost a lot of operation costs and marketing costs. So in terms of costs, if we do direct sales, of course, the margin would be higher. However, we have to redirect that cost and do marketing and operations, so there is risk. So, um, in terms of business, I personally think that this partnership is a mandatory cost, and uh, through this partnership, I think thanks to the extended volume, so that of course is the most strongest strategy, I would say.
Thank you very much for your answer. Now let's move on to the second question. This is also a question related to business. Let's say I cannot screen in the first round, and then let's say doctors also miss something in the second round. So who has the responsibility? Do you think you are responsible for the missing?
Well, to answer your question, when we manufacture a product, and if in order to make it widely used in the medical market, then we need authorization. Then we have to prove to for what purposes this can be used and what kind of risks this may have. And so far, for this AI, we are included in the second leader category, which means that say if specialist consultants in this field or that field, when they use this medical device to read and interpret the result, then our device is just a supporting part. It takes an aiding part, so that's it. So, in the legal perspective, we are supporting medical device, so the legal responsibility does not come to us. So, but of course, we do have concerns when this medical device is used, and from customers' perspective, they may worry. There may be some missing points. If they heavily depend on this medical device, they may miss some factors. So, because of that, what we think is really important is that we go through various clinical trials and we make sure that this is safe. And when we conducted some tests, and it turned out to be safe, and making sure was number one priority. And of course, there are risks, but in fact, the risk is not that big. So making them understand this was really important. And when we listen to customers, and there weren't many people who showed that kind of concern. They said, "Oh, this accuracy is good enough." And for 10 years and 20 years, since there is a medical doctor who has a decade or 2 decades of experience, they can provide opinion, and they are satisfied with the accuracy. So if the accuracy is high, then that means risk is low, so they do not actually feel a risk. So if a medical device had low accuracy, then that means higher risk. So we developed this medical device with high accuracy, and that is really important.
Yeah, so my next question is related to your answer just now because you have to trust the decision of AI and then there should be evidence and justification of that judgment. And you said that process is very important, especially medical or autonomous driving or something that is related to human life would be an area where we need to be very careful. And of course, AI technology itself is important, but more than that, accumulated data and many different parameters, something related to scope and time, have to be working as a prominent element for the decision. And to increase this accuracy and safety, what kind of efforts are you putting in, and what is your differentiator?
So it is really important in terms of data categorization, and that is the key, I personally think. Of course, AI technology itself is really important, but how we are going to collect data samples and how you're going to um, combine that, analyze it, and how you're going to use it is really important. So we want to collect data from various sources. So if rather than getting massive data from only one source, rather getting various data samples from various sources is more even better. So nowadays, there are a lot of regulatory measures that are kind of lowering their burden. So, in accordance with the regulatory measures in the United States, and since there is no regulatory issues, so we can feel free to collect samples. And in Korea, of course, there is a guideline. However, it is not legally binding, so it is only a guideline. So there is this vague gray zone, so that kind of opens a room for some challenge. So in terms of legal standards, we thoroughly go over those issues. So and nowadays the borderlines are getting thicker and thicker. So if we are not um, like we don't have any attention to just route the legal standards, but actually there is no clear legal standards, so that is a problem. And this may differ depending on different medical devices, and this is really important in terms of AI and proving its validity in terms of clinical characteristics, and how we properly deal with this clinical issues is also really important. And I personally think there is nothing that much that we should worry about. It's really similar with other sectors as well. And I personally think that first mover effect is really important in this industry. For example, say, of course, in the healthcare industry, it is almost the same. When a customer uses a medical device and if they are satisfied with, they don't tend to get a new device or another company's device. So I think this first mover strategy is really important. And so if we increase satisfactory level, so but for those late followers, we should do this strategy.
Okay, then let's talk about the AI life cycle. When it comes to the operational plan, I have a question. As you said, um, data has to be fed continuously, and when you secure the data, you have to label them as well. There has to be some tasks for a data labeling. And for this area, what kind of a plan do you have as your company?
Getting labeling and annotation, we have been enhancing our platform for that, and like you said, it costs a lot. So if AI has a certain level of learning already, then there may be some data that AI may be confused, and we get that part of data, and if there is some clear thing that we don't get that source, so that kind of development is going under our source, and our goal is to keep getting data from our customers. So the data used by customers, if there is a way we can keep getting data samples, then that will create a virtuous cycle, right? The more data we have, even more data we will have, and continuously, this AI will improve itself, and that itself will enhance our competency. So that part we will keep our efforts on.
Now I have the final question. There is other cancers, not just breast cancer or lung cancer. I believe that you're going to fuse AI into other cancer treatment or detection as well. So, do you have any final goal as a company? What is the scope for your scalability?
The approach a startup company has and big companies' approach may be different. And startup strength is that they can focus on one thing. So for us, from the very early beginning, we um, kept working on this focus field, and we focused on cancer diagnosis and treatment. So I think we will keep concentrating on that. So in terms of diagnostics, we began with lung cancer, and then we are thinking of expanding to other kinds of cancers as well. And in some short years, we're currently not thinking of expanding to other fields because there are a lot of choices, and I think this is a thing for the market. And within the market, if there is some relevant devices, then we will keep developing our AI. Thank you. That is it for my question, and thank you for your answers.